Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I am Anara Tabashaliva, along with co-hosts Dr. Victor Fett, Dr. Katerina Shrey, and our program producer, Professor Larry Shrey. We host a weekly discussion panel on Russia's war on Ukraine with guests from Ukraine, military experts, medical personnel, academics, artists, literary figures, and relief workers. Our panel is recorded and circulated nationally and internationally. We appreciate your comments and feedback. Special thanks to Marshall University Libraries and MUIT for making this weekly event possible. If you are joining us live on Teams, please feel free to use the chat to post any question for our guest. A quick greetings to our viewers in Ukraine from Professor Katerina Shrey.
Вітаємо наших слухачів в Україні з глибоким поклоном. Ми свідки вашого страшного терпіння і також вашої великої сили. Дякую вам за вашу участь в нашій тижневій програмі.
Today's guest will be introduced by Professor Victor Fett. The rest of us turn off our cameras. Thank you.
Thank you, Anara. I'm glad and honored to introduce and welcome back Iryna Skachko from Kharkiv, Ukraine. She is a journalist and a member of the Kharkiv Human Rights Protection Group, and she will tell us about her work and life in Kharkiv today. This is a second part of the Kharkiv Human Rights Protection Group presentation, continuing from the last week. The group is one of the oldest Ukrainian human rights organizations, tracing its origins back to the Soviet-era dissident movement in the 1980s. Since the beginning of the Russian invasion in 2022, the Kharkiv Human Rights Protection Group recorded numerous violations of international humanitarian and international criminal law by the Russian occupiers. You will find more information and references, also references to some of Iryna's recent publication in English on our website. Welcome, Iryna, and microphone is yours. We are honored to have you.
Thank you. We discussed with Victor what topic should I cover, and I offered that since I'm a mom of 3 kids, so I would like to tell you how childhood looks like in Kharkiv. So, one moment. So, you can see my screen, yes?
Yes, wow.
Well, this is us. It's the first days of the invasion. Here, 5 of us. Here, 5 of us, me and 3 my daughters and 1 scared dog. Somewhere there are 2 cats and my husband takes a picture. We are hiding in the basement. Not the proper one, so it's an old cellar we haven't used anymore for many years. And it's not even under the main house. To get there, when the shelling starts, we had to run outside through the yard into the old shed. Well, we were not thinking about the war when we bought the house ages ago. Otherwise, we would have bought something with the bunker. And we think of bunkers a lot those days. Well, and we in this photo still believe that the war will be over in a week or so. And when we realized that it would last much longer, we fled. Not abroad, actually, not really far. It was Poltava, nearby town, but it's a little bit far, more far from the border, and it was quietly there. And what I want to say is that it took us 2 weeks to realize all the risks we faced. But not all the people of Kharkiv left. Many of them lived in the subway for months And we are actually lucky to have a subway here, because it's the best shelter you can think of when you feel that the sky is falling on your head. And first days, Russian war jets flying quite freely in our sky. And in any basement, you are not safe when they drop their bombs. So a lot of people who lived nearby the subway stations hid there, and moms with infants had more comfortable places to live in the carriages, because in the hallways it was not so comfortable. There was a draft, it was cold. Kids were entertained by volunteers, actors from local theaters, musicians, teachers came to them, not their actual teachers, but if on station were teacher, some of teachers, they are trying to trying to make children comfortable, to make them forget about the war if it's possible. Since then, almost all entertainment for kids in Kharkiv went underground, and it still goes this way. Well, but the greatest problem of those days was the problem with providing medical aid to pregnant women and newborns. Our perinatal hospital became known all over the world when David Beckham mentioned it in his Instagram and gave his account for one day for the chief doctor of this hospital, Iryna Skachko. Well, that's her. That's how social networks works nowadays, that it was important that some football player mentioned our problem to help us. So she posted stories from the hospital basement where women gave birth while Kharkiv was under attack. There were a lot of premature babies. I remember the information those days in Kharkiv that premature birth jumped to 3 times their normal rate. And you can't take those tiny babies out of intensive care even during air alerts. So medical staff stayed with them, risking their own life. And it's how human life began in my city back then. Meanwhile, the enemy was destroying Kharkiv and especially our schools. According to KHPG research, at the beginning of the invasion, the Russians destroyed 2 schools per day only in Kharkiv. If you think about the whole region, the figures are higher. And here you can see the school that was destroyed, one of the first. It was destroyed during the first days of the war when Russians, when there already was fierce street fighting in the city. There was a short moment when Russian troops were in the city trying to capture Kharkiv, and they captured this building, and there was really intense fight. So this school then didn't make it, as you see. And that is my kids' school. I don't know what kind of weapon it was, but as you can see, something knocked out an entire classroom on the first floor. Somebody said that it was a tank or something like that. As I remember, it was a physical training classroom. So we can't study there. My kids can't study there right now. And why so many schools were destroyed? The occupiers, the Russians, believe that the schools are being used by Ukrainian forces as headquarters. So they aim artillery and rockets at them. And in Kharkiv, 112 schools were damaged, and 4 schools cannot be restored at all. But Russians themselves choose schools as bases as well. And in the Kharkiv region, we found traces of the placement of Russian troops in school in the village of Vasilenkove. In the basement of it, there were boxes and casings of shot artillery ammunitions, and as well as documents for this military unit. And it appears that the Russian unit was positioned directly in this school building. It was a very old building, since, I didn't know, maybe 100 or more years, but it was destroyed because they were firing from the school, and they drawn return fire, backfire from Ukrainian forces. As well, many kindergartens were destroyed, and universities. My alma mater, the Kharkiv National University, was targeted several times. Some of its buildings are destroyed, and this you can see here Kharkiv Institute of Physics and Technology. It's the part of Kharkiv National University. And in March 2022, Russian military struck the territory of it several times with Grad. And there is experimental nuclear facility, neutral source. It's located there, and during the shelling, there were several nuclear fuel elements loaded into the active zone of this installation. And it's a miracle that nothing worse than destruction of the institute itself happened there, because Russians were aware of the danger of radioactive contamination, but they just ignored it. And here is the Faculty of Economics of my university. It's located in the center of the city, and it's destroyed as well, almost completely. Only walls stayed. Well, but life in occupied territories wasn't easy as well. And we must understand that for Russians, our kids are their aim during this war, because they want to change the Ukrainian nation through them. And I already told you last time about this man. He is principal from Borivska school, and he was captured and tortured only because he didn't want to cooperate with the invaders. The Russians tried to make Ukrainian teachers work according to the Russian educational program, which completely coincides with Putin's point of view on Ukrainian history, language, culture, and the Ukrainian state itself. Of course, Putin denies every single part of them. And they threw away Ukrainian books from schools, libraries, especially ones that were published not in Soviet times. They ruined monuments dedicated to Ukrainian history, especially Holodomor. They took more than 200 children from Kharkiv region to Russia for summer holidays, and then their parents had to make a lot of efforts to get them back. Since the beginning of Russia's full-scale war against Ukraine, at least more than 2,000 civilians have died in Kharkiv region, including 77 children. And it's information as of this summer, so the figure is much higher. And I came back to Kharkiv in June. First time I came back here without kids for myself in June 2022, and it seemed there so quiet. It seemed there were no kids at all here, and it was the silent city, despite of explosions and noises of war. It was a silent city because there you couldn't hear some voices of children. It's amazing how much city noise that bath consists of children's voices. But now Kharkiv kids are back. Not all of them, but nevertheless, if in 2019 more than 130,000 children studied in Kharkiv schools. Now, according to our city council, less than half of total number of school students are currently here. More than 1 million Ukrainian children are in the European Union, and I don't know how much of them are from my city, but I suppose it's a big part. And in classes of my daughters, only up to 3 or 5 students are in Kharkiv right now, and the are elsewhere, in other Ukrainian areas and abroad, even in Australia. And most of the school kids study online. That's like during the COVID, but there is a war, like 2 problems on our head. And even if their schools are okay, there are too many alerts every day, so we can't make them go to school offline. So, and even if some schools have shelters, they have good basements, it doesn't help actually, because the Russian missile from Belgorod flies here for 40 seconds. And usually you hear an explosion, and only then, after that, you hear an alert. So many kids which are in Kharkiv, they just sit home and they study online. And many kids abroad study in both school systems. They study in Ukrainian and in local schools. It's difficult, I suppose, but they are trying not to lose their roots. Their parents trying make them not to lose their roots, and they hope that someday they will return home. Well, that's why this year many children in Kharkiv go to the underground, into their subway school. School which classes located inside the metro stations. They have 3 lessons and sorry. Children have 3 lessons there, and they study in specially equipped classrooms at 5 stations of our city subway. It's for first grades and for high school students, and children study there 2 or 3 times a week, and other time they study as well online. And the total number of students of such subway school now reached more than 2,000 children. They study in 2 shifts, and special buses take them to the station from their districts that could be far away from subway line. Well, and Ukraine first underground school, not in the subway, but really underground, will be built in the northeast part of Kharkiv, and the other one will be built in Korotych. It's near Kharkiv. That's really, that will be real bunker, I suppose, accordingly to these pictures. And it's the way how we live here. So because I would like to have such school nearby where my kid will study in such bunker. But we understand that Russia is nearby, and this situation will not resolve in the near future, next some years, and we are getting used to it. We don't go to the forest. It's forbidden because there still can be mines and explosives. Theater, exhibitions, Christmas tree for kids, everything is in the subway. You can see our this year Christmas tree. It's not somewhere in the park where it's supposed to be, but our central park gave this Christmas tree to the subway, so kids could have some holiday, some New Year or Christmas party. Well, that's our life now. And if you wonder how to help, I left here some links. You can donate our organization or some the fund we work with, or any charity you like. Here you can see Volunteer 68. It's a Kharkiv organization that help people from the occupied territories, and my husband worked with them before he went to the army. And here's Animal Rescue Kharkiv. It's an organization that helps many stray dogs and cats that were abandoned when people fled from their homes. Sometimes it was impossible to take their pets with them. Sometimes people run in hurry. So they help pets from Kherson. You hear a bit, I think. And if you don't want to think about war, it's another organization, Tabletочки, that help kids with cancer, and you can help them maybe. Well, that's it.
Thank you very much, Iryna, for your dramatic presentation. I'm sure we have a few questions from our viewers. We have a number of our regular people attending today. Please ask your questions. Dr. Deutsch. Dr. Deutsch, yes, you're here. I don't see Leonard Deutsch. Let me see who else
You should
is
be unmuted.
Yes.
Sorry. Oh, I was
Leonard.
saying,
There we
okay,
go.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I was saying that I was able to print out a list of those links, and maybe later, if you want to put it back up and let others have the opportunity to do that. I did have a question, though, about your own children's education. How far from normal grade level do you think the war has put them? How bad is it in terms of staying at grade level?
I don't know about grade level. We will see later. I want to tell you that my youngest daughter, she is 8, and she had never attended school in proper way, because when she went to school first, it was COVID, and she almost haven't like her experience to be with kids in the school, and then the war started. So I think the main problems, the most problems will be on some psychological level. They are not socialized, or they have no experience to interfere with other kids. It's the problems. All their grades, they somehow will, like, they will study if life became as it was.
So it's the interaction with other children. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Deutsch. Please open your camera if you're asking another question. John Yeager, Pastor Yeager, please.
Thank you so much for sharing. Very moving. Your distress is palpable and obviously understandable. One of the concerns my nephew heard of, I think it was in northern Ohio, a Ukrainian family had come and as refugees, and the school system did nothing for this young lad who was going to school, who did not know English at all. And the assumption was, well, just send him anyways. I guess maybe you've heard of language programs in other where refugees have moved to other countries, say Ireland or Germany, but that's one question. The other question is, or actually not a question, but just for information, we were hoping that Anna Filipova would be on. I've tried to reach her. Do you know about Anna Filipova, who is, have you heard of her? She's taking, single-handedly taking medical supplies to the front line from Western Ukraine. I'm sure many people are doing that. She caught our attention here recently because she was on the CNN program. But the point is, everybody just pray for her. I hope she's safe. It may have something to do with the fact that, people can track cell phones and so on, and maybe she's, but I don't know, I'm just guessing about her status. But anyway, Anna Filipova. But okay. Okay. All right. But anyway, to my first question, sorry, Iryna.
As for language courses, it depends on country, and even within one country, it depends on regions. Because some of my friends live currently in German, and it depends on the land where they live. If there is some prepare schools that prepare kids to study in German schools, like special classes, or there is nothing. So it's very, very different in each country. Even in Poland, where many of Ukrainians live right now, in some schools they have some resources to help these kids, and in some maybe local schools that have no funds, such funds to have additional teachers and some social workers or psychologists. There are some problems with language and even bullying. So it's different in every country.
Yeah, I'm kind of jumping in on this question as well for the Pastor Yeager asked. I'm surprised that happened in Ohio because there is a large Slavic community in Ohio. It's also something that the previous generation of war refugees experienced. My parents, for example, when they first came, there was nothing, but then the community built up a strong Ukrainian community with Ukrainian schools so that the children would never forget their culture. I'm a product of this, that growing up, I went to American school Monday through Friday, and then Saturdays I went to Ukrainian school and Ukrainian scouts and whatnot. Back then there was no English language, English as a second language emphasis, but today in America, in fact, all public schools are required to provide assistance for students whose first language is not English. And so I'm very sad that happened to the family you're speaking about. At least, and again, and I don't mean to at all step on Iryna's expertise here, but just a little bit from what the immigrant refugee experience is in the United States. There are in the northern cities where there are large populations of Ukrainians. It's almost the responsibility of the Ukrainian community, who themselves were refugees once and were helped by the predecessors. It's kind of on us to be there to welcome our brothers and sisters from this horrible, tragic war, especially the young families. And so I know, like in Philadelphia, for example, there's a Ukrainian school, Ukrainian center. Every Ukrainian church, both Orthodox and Catholic, has all sorts of resources available. So I'm truly sorry that this happened to the family that you've heard of. And Iryna, I didn't turn my camera on at first because this is as one mom to another. I cannot imagine what you're going through and how your heart must break for your children and other children. We've seen, again, speaking as two generations ahead of where you are, we see the long-term aftermath in our families. I have not so much now, God rest their souls, they're gone, but I had relatives who were older who just never caught up on their education. They're very, very smart, intellectually smart people, but their education was critically interrupted. So that, for example, going into the STEM field, science, math, engineering, was never going to be an option, but they could catch up in some fields like literature, history. You could catch up in that much more readily. There are other members of my family who live normal lives, but you can tell that they are children of wartime. And when you first meet them, it doesn't matter who you are. The first story they'll tell you is when they were fleeing from this place or this horrible thing happened. And they tell the story again and again and again. I think it's just their way of coping and processing. My heart goes out to you. The pictures you shared, the women in the giving birth, in the hospital basements. I mean, I cannot imagine any of this, and you've made it so real and so as Pastor Yeager said, so palpable for us, the distress that you and your fellow people are experiencing. So I do have a question leading up to this, and I'm almost afraid to ask it because it's a terrifying question. We do hear of these kidnappings and relocations of Ukrainian children to Russia, where they are then brainwashed to hate Ukraine and returned as soldiers fighting against Ukraine. Do you know anything about this?
Well, not personally, but as a journalist, I study this topic, and we heard of such scene much like since 14 years when Crimea was occupied. There is a lot of kids. They were studied in Ukrainian schools, and then Russia came, and so they were. I suppose they were brainwashed, and many of boys, with those boys who were studied as Ukrainian citizens, went to the army because there was draft, and they fight against us now. It's terrible. Yeah.
You remember here in our Ukrainian schools here, we're taught of a story about Yevshanzilia. Do you know this story? I mean,
Yes.
I barely remember it, but it's amazing. Like it's so for our viewers, I don't remember any of the details, but the story is that a young person, I think it's a man, coming back, the smell of a Yevshanzilia, a herb, like a plant, an herb, the smell suddenly brings back his childhood memories of his native home, and that's all I remember from the story. And this is literally 50 years ago, a story I read 50 years ago. So it's I don't know, it's amazing how some little themes recur through time. And again, I don't mean to take up more time with this, but thank you for answering that. We've heard from previous speakers about this relocation of Ukrainian children, but we never, and again, it is frightening to even ask about details of this. So thank you for in expanding our knowledge. I see now that Anara has got her hand up, so I'm going to yield the floor.
First of all, I would like to thank you for your oral story. It's so important for history and for memory. And also, as a mother of 3 children, I admire your courage and wisdom, what you're doing. I think it's a very, very important. And my question is about multi-ethnicity of Kharkiv and Kharkiv province, because Kharkiv is the largest cultural, educational, industrial center after Kiev, probably. And that's why we, before war, there were Ukrainian constituted 70%, Russian 25%. In addition, there were other numerous ethnic minorities. How people from different ethnic minorities cooperate and help each other in this difficult time. And at the same time, can you see any ethnic tension among religious and ethnic groups today? Thank you.
Well, my family is mixed ethnicity as well, and when there are Ukrainian, Russians, Jew, and we spoke partly Ukrainian, partly Russian before the war. But when the war started, my kids became speak Ukrainian without some my attention or so, because it was in the first days of the war when I saw that they wrote some that they communicate with their friends in Ukrainian, because it was impossible to speak Russian those days, because it was a kind of guilt that the war is because of us, that Putin like cover by us. He said that there are Russian-speaking population and he wants to save us, but we never like asked him to save us. And there are a lot of ethnicities in Kharkiv, yes, and all of them work together. There are a lot of volunteers, Armenians. I can't say that all of them like gather on ethnicity level. It's just everything is mixed, and I don't feel any tensions on ethnicity level or on religious level. I'm not really like, I don't know about maybe Kharkiv churches. I'm not, I don't go there very often, So maybe something in some religious group, but I can't say that.
Thank you.
Yes, please, more questions. If we have any from panel. I wanted to ask, meanwhile, you mentioned schools, of course. Are there any online programs in Ukrainian language which kids normally would take? How does this go? Are there people, organizations who provide this remote online teaching?
Since there was 2 years of COVID, so program is goes well online, I suppose. The problem is that in some villages there are no internet connection or there are no gadgets. We in the big city, like, we are lucky, we have one gadget for each kid, but not every family can afford such thing as one gadget per kid. So I think there are a lot of problems with that in some villages or small towns in Kharkiv region or elsewhere. But program is, I can say about my school, and I like it. It's okay. There are all lessons, but they all are online. But
Thank you. Please, our guests and panel, please ask more questions.
I see that Pastor Yeager has his hand up, but I'm not sure if that's a holdover from the previous question.
Yeah. John, did you have another question? I don't hear.
No, no question. No new question.
Any more questions or comments, please? We have time. Iryna, you told us last time, you and your colleagues told us a lot about other aspects as well. Leonard, please.
I was just going to ask, is the government functional enough to pay the teachers?
well, our school is private, so I pay my teachers. So I can't say about state schools, but I think, well, their salary of teachers is never enough, because I don't know how in USA, but before the war, the salary of teachers of school staff was really low. I don't think that situation got better during the war started.
But there is enough money available through the government to provide services of some sort or another. That you have ambulances, you have people cleaning up the city. Is that mostly volunteer, or are these most people paid?
Well, there are a lot of volunteers, but there are all city services, they work, that's employers of city council, so they got some salary. But when some buildings are destroyed, there is an army of volunteers who help to rebuild all that was destroyed. There are a lot of volunteers here.
Thank you.
Are you able to like buy food regularly? Like, are stores still open? Do you have to stock up, or can you, I mean, I guess you can't count on anything, but like your daily life to provide for your children's needs, clothes, food, electricity, that kind of the infrastructure. Is all that, like, how close to normal is life under war right now for you all? Are you able, so I guess, are the shelves empty, or is there food?
Shelves are not empty, I can assure you. life is really close to normal in Kharkiv, and it's astonishing when we go to our field trips to Izium, to near front line, and we are back. That's like 2 hours from these regions where actually is really tough war. And you come to Kharkiv, and there are a lot of lights, and all supermarkets, all malls are working. There are a lot of sweets, chocolates, and so on and so on. You would be wonder how it is close to normal, but it's so close to not normal, like geographically.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
close to normal by all other means. Like there are some of tiny differs. Like I can't go to the cinema because as most of them are closed when it's air alert. And since there are a lot of them in Kharkiv, it's it doesn't mean there will be shelling or bombing. That's just alert because some jet is flying over Russia, and it means that it can be some strike or it cannot be, and we have an alert, and our cinemas are closed, and you don't know how long it would be, and you have to wait. So our theaters don't work because it's forbidden to be together in big amount of people. So sometimes they have like little place somewhere in basement. You can go there. Maybe in some club that before the war it was music club in the basement, something like marginal, and now it's a great cultural center because you can go there and see some theater play. And so
strange. Oh my gosh, how strange this must be for you. I see that we have Pastor Yeager. No, Pastor Bob. Oh, we have another question.
Yeah, given how close Kharkiv is to the border with Russia, I'm just wondering how often you are under missile and drone attacks. Is this a nightly thing? And how effective have the Western supplied defensive equipment, how successful has it been in protecting Kharkiv, especially like its power grid?
Well, there were a lot of strikes and bombing and shelling last year. But since counter-strike, when Russian troops were moved away from Kharkiv, it get easier, it get quieter. But as I mentioned, Belgorod is really close to us. And if they launched a rocket, it fly only 40 seconds. And usually they can catch it in the flight, but sometimes they can't, and then we have some uneasy nights. Those, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Iryna. Thank you. Do we have more comments, please? We're nearing the end of the hour, and we thank you so much for being with us. It's really our privilege and pleasure. We want you to come again sometime, or others from your group. You told us a lot last week and this week. Larry?
Iryna, thank you for your report, the conversation you've had. Do you recommend some news sources in English where we should be going to get our news?
Well, as a journalist, I can recommend our sources. We have, my organization have English like page in English, and there are a lot of news, and we have a site with more analytical information. It's T4P Tribunal for Putin. I think that Victor can provide you with these links, so I recommend them. We work on it to provide you with all this news. We translate our text in, I suppose, near 8 languages, among them Italian, Spanish, and French, and so on, German.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to getting those links from Victor.
Thank you very much. We conclude the program then with our customary greeting to Ukrainian viewers, and we thank Iryna once again for being with us today. Katerina, please.
Дякую, Ірина. Дорогі браття і сестри в Україні, ми зберігаємо вас у наших щоденних думках і молитвах. Нехай милосердний Бог тримає вас у своїй опіці. До наступного тижня. Прощаємося.
Героям слава!
Героям слава! Дякую за запрошення.